Welcome to Leading the Follower with your host, Rebecca Benston. Hello, everybody. I am back, and today we're going to talk about a little thing called sifting the grifting. I have been becoming increasingly frustrated with people who were entrusted with informing all of us about important daily happenings that occur in our world, meaning our mainstream media, our newspapers, our newscasters, whoever it is that we have trusted to deliver the stories that we need to hear. It's been obvious for a long time that they have not been telling us the truth. They have been reading from a script and just telling us the things that other people want us to hear. For whatever reason, they have an agenda, and it's usually not on our in our best interests. So, um, a long time ago, I swore off watching the news because it was just so sensationalized and so lacking in empathy and just didn't give us the information that we really needed to hear. Like, how does this impact us, and what do we need to pull from this story other than, you know, the fact that you want ratings and you want followers and you need your sponsors to see how many people are watching or listening to you. So I swore it off, just stopped buying into all of the stuff that they were putting out there. And I understood that much of it was, in fact, scripted and designed to either keep us in fear or frustration over things that we seemingly have no control over. Um, we do have control, but that starts when we begin to acknowledge that we have power and we can speak up and we can go and do things in spite of what they're telling us we can and can't do. But that's a whole different topic that I'll have to address later. But what's worse to me is many of the people who stepped up in the last few years to provide the information that was being suppressed in their own platforms, independent journalists and things like that. The armchair quarterbacks, if you will, of our society. Um, they have started to lean more heavily on their audiences for support of their own personal causes rather than being resources for the truth as they originally intended to be. I'm thinking that many of them started their podcasts or their videos or their channels or whatever it is they have in in a fit of frustration over the things that were happening that they saw happening, but other people didn't seem to realize were in the works. So instead of leading people, these people have begun to leverage those relationships as a means of supporting themselves, and their content is becoming a little, not much more than a whiny rehash of details we've already heard a million times, interspersed with desperate pleas for financial support. Now, I understand that by stepping up to inform us about things, many of them were probably not likely to be able to return to conventional work to pay their bills. However, if you have nothing new or substantial to say, please stop asking me to pay for your old words. I've heard it a million times. If I've watched your broadcasts for more than 6 months and I hear the same message repeating over and over, I tend to get tired of it and I'll turn it off. You're not giving me anything new. You're not giving me information that I need to hear. I'm hearing your spin on the same thing that they are trying to spin differently, and it's not substantial. It's not what I need. So, I realize also that that's a pretty gutsy statement coming from an author who hasn't released a new book in a while. My words are obviously old as an author who started writing back in 2005, 2006, but I'm still asking people to buy my books. Well, that's a little different. It's a lot different to ask new readers to check out a fictional story or even a memoir or your life story, um, when they probably haven't read it. That's a whole different matter than to expect subscribers who have been with you for a while to pay more and more for you to rehash cold theories that are never fully substantiated, or when you get to a point where you're starting to really get into a discussion with someone on your channel and you just cut it off because you don't want to talk anymore. Um, I can't tell you how frustrating that is to be listening and listening and listening, and they finally have gained the momentum to reach the point that the whole thing was about, and then they just cut it right there. Well, we're going to have to stop for now. Why are you going to have to stop? I mean, if you have to stop, just cut it, call it part one, and then immediately get back on there and do part two because your people want to hear what the rest of the story was. And you just leave them hanging. That's just not good. So, bringing these guests on to say the same things over and over is just annoying at this point. And my patience with it is just all but gone. Um, Saying this, though, I realize that our fight for freedom is extremely important, but we are not going to make anyone feel as though we are highly informed if our information continues to simply loop around itself without ever resolving. When you have a message to deliver, you should be talking about how that message ties in with what's going on in the world and why it's important to connect the dots instead of taking each of these stories that are being generated from mainstream sources as gospel. For God's sake, we need to dig deeper and stop whining. Lord, there are so many out there who just keep asking the same questions and making the same statements, and then they will whine about how bad everything is for them and how hard it is to do what they're doing. Yes, everything that we have to do is difficult. The things that we have to do for purposes such as this are extremely difficult and challenging, but whining about it doesn't garner any support for you. There's not a single parent out there who would say that the issues that they are facing as a result of all the shenanigans going on in Washington, D.C., are easy to deal with. Things are tough all over, and constantly telling people that it's going to get worse is not helping to instill confidence or hope. And to give someone an uplifting angle to look at is not pushing hopium, as they say. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be right back. Okay, as I was saying, it is not um, pushing hopium to tell someone what's going on and then try to give them an uplifting angle to follow. It is giving them a reason to look for the truth where it's been hidden from them. Tell them the full truth and help them to find it where you found it. And if they don't want to accept it, that's fine. But stop trying to use a different side of the fear porn coin to control your followers. It's stupid and it degrades the entire purpose of what you were originally trying to do. This is really the same issue that disciples have had from the beginning of their existence. Um, how do you find a way to tell people, um, or not necessarily disciples, but disciplers, but how do you find a way to tell people what they absolutely need to know without completely alienating them and basically pushing them into the arms of the devil? Well, you give them your testimony truthfully and openly, and you ask them to consider whether or not it resonates with them. If it does, they may be ready to consider the truth you're telling them over the truth that has been told to them by these uh, media outlets and so forth who have less than pure motives. Now, that is considering, that your motives are also pure. If you're not operating on the right wavelength, then maybe you need to stop talking altogether. Um, but if what you're saying doesn't resonate with people, then they aren't ready to hear it, and you'll have to let God deal with them. What you don't do is continue to tell them the same thing and then add to them just how bad things are going to get for them if they don't listen. That just sounds like a threat. And what you don't do also is stop in the middle of your testimony to ask for a contribution or to buy something that you're selling. If your motives are in fact pure, then you need to focus on the message and why the message is needed to abandon all and to abandon all self-serving statements during the course of your interaction with that audience. And for the love of God, so many things have just been gnawing at me over all that I listen to on a daily and weekly basis, trying to filter out what's not true and take in what I need to know to survive. But one thing, please stop pointing out all the places where you've been right in your predictions or statements. Just stand confidently on the things that you have to say, and stop being so childish about the way you're presenting your material. If you must acknowledge that something you had previously stated was correct, don't be smug about it. Don't be childish. People who have been duped by those whom they already trusted, or who they trusted, they already feel bad enough, and nothing turns off a listener like the whole "I told you so" speech. Just stop it, examine your motives, ditch the script, and tell the truth. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to check out our website and blog. The blog is at www.leading-the-follower.com. Thanks and God bless.